Okay, so I'm just about to get started. Thank you all for attending today. Today, what I'd like to do is take you through the new live mode of Off2Class. So my name is Chris. I work with Off2Class, and we've been busy preparing a new classroom for 2017. And we're really excited that it's launched and that you all have access to it. And it's quite a new system of using our ESL classroom. So we thought it would be important for myself and for the team to have these welcome webinars to walk you through the new system, to show you all the new features that you can use in your teaching, and for you to ask any questions that you might have. So I'm going to show you around today. I'm going to show you around both from the perspective of providing an online lesson, sort of like what I'm doing now, or providing an in-person lesson. So if you were teaching a group in a classroom or kind of corporate environment, or if you were doing a one-to-one tutorial, I'm going to show you what's changed, what hasn't changed, and what new possibilities you have to do your teaching. So as you can see, I'm logged in to Off2Class as a teacher. I've got my logo in the top left because I've decided to brand the platform. This isn't my real logo. This is a logo I just took off the internet. And so the first thing I'm going to do is show you about embedding my Zoom URL into my profile. So this is relevant for online teachers. So if you're an in-person tutor or a classroom teacher, you can kind of ignore the first couple of minutes here. But if you're an online teacher, this is going to be specifically interesting for you. So what I mean is that I teach my online lessons using Zoom. That's the system we're on right now. And Zoom, the way Zoom works is, unlike Skype or Google Hangouts, you don't call anyone to initiate the video conferencing classroom. You actually, each of you, you and your participants, you click a URL, and that URL automatically tells your Zoom window to open up. And because it's a URL-based joining system, we can actually embed that in our new classroom. We can put your meeting links into our new classroom. I'll just show you how that works. So I'm going to open up my Zoom client. So I've downloaded Zoom onto my desktop, and this is what it looks like. I've set up a number of meetings. I set them up as recurring meetings. And the meeting that I want to use for my online lessons, I've just called it Online Lessons. And so you can see it here in my Meetings tab. I've got one called Online Lessons. And when I press copy here, this copy button under Online Lessons, that copies the meeting invite. And now if I paste that meeting invite, I'm just going to paste it into a notepad here, but you could paste it into a Word document or an email. You'll see that it's a little bit confusing how they make these invites, but actually the portion you need, the URL that you need to join my meetings is this part here. After it says join from PC, Mac, Linux, iOS, or Android, https://zoom.us followed by 9 unique numbers. That's the portion you need. If I was to click that, you could test this out. You could click that URL on your desktop right now, and that would launch your Zoom meeting. So I'm just going to press copy, just the portion, just that URL portion. And then I'm going to go over to my profile in Off2Class. And at the bottom of your profile, you're going to see here a part that says video conference link. So I'm going to paste my link into there. So you can see it's the same link I was showing you before, https://zoom.us followed by 9 unique numbers. I'm going to press update profile. And now that URL is saved into my profile on Off2Class. And I'm going to show you what that does. So now I'm going to launch a lesson on OptClass. So I think I will stick with my conditionals lesson, my second conditionals. So I'm going to launch the lesson. And I'm going to enroll my student. I'm going to pretend that you guys are my student, Gabriella, and it's a one-to-one lesson today. So I'm going to enroll my student, Gabriella, by pressing enroll here. And the classroom launches. And I've got Gabriella enrolled in the classroom in the bottom left here. If I was doing a group lesson today, I could enroll multiple students into the classroom. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave Gabriella here. Now, if I was doing an in-person lesson today or an online lesson, it doesn't really make a difference. The big change here now with our live mode is that your students can now follow the content live from their own device. And I'll just show you what that means. So basically, I'm going to come to Gabriella's side of OptClass. This is my student, Gabriella. When she logs into OptClass, this is what she sees. And Gabriella is now going to join the lesson. She has this big blue button, green button up here that says join lesson. So Gabriella is going to join the lesson. And she gets taken in to her side of the lesson content on OptClass. So obviously she doesn't have the teacher notes here in the top left. So I'm coming back to the teacher side. On the teacher side of OptClass, I've got the lesson content on the right and the teacher notes on the left. Obviously, the teacher notes are only for me to see as the teacher. They guide me on how to teach the lesson. They give me different ideas on how to concept check, target language. They also, for questions that are exercises, they provide me with the answers. So there's no more need on OptClass to hide your teacher notes from your students because, as you can see, my side, I can see the teacher notes. But when I come over to Gabriella's side, she only sees the lesson content. So Gabriella can follow my lesson from her own device. If this was an in-person lesson, Gabriella could, for example, be on her mobile phone, on her tablet, on her laptop. You could be on your own laptop or tablet. For an online lesson, I'll just show you now, when Gabriella joins the classroom, or even before Gabriella joins the classroom, I can launch my Zoom meeting by pressing Start Video here. Because I've embedded that URL into my profile, I can actually launch my Zoom meeting from here. And likewise, Gabriella can launch her video from here. She's prompted to start her video from here. This is a classroom chat. So usually what I do is I'm sitting here, I'm waiting for my student to join, and the classroom chat pops open when my student joins. I can see that Gabriella has joined the classroom. And then if she doesn't press start video, I can just say, hey, Gabriella, press start video. And that usually does the trick. And then my student presses start video and we're in the lesson. Now, if you want to use a different video conferencing system for your online lessons, that's not a problem. If it doesn't have a URL to join, that's not a problem at all. All it means is that you won't put the URL in your profile and you won't have this start video button here. And then it'll be a two-step process to join your lessons. So Gabriella will log into OptClass just like I showed you, and then you'll call her on Skype, and that's it. Now, the only thing I'll mention is that you need to minimize the window, the video conferencing window, so that it appears as a small box. And that's the same whether you're using Zoom or Skype. You need to minimize your window so that you can both see your video conferencing and the classroom. Okay, so now I'm going to walk you through what's really changed here. So we call it live mode, and the reason we call it live mode is because now everything is synced between your side as the teacher of OptClass and the student side of OptClass. What I mean is, if I start drawing on the screen using my pen or typing on the screen using the text tool, this is me typing, all of these annotations and markings now get reflected onto my student side of OptClass Live. So I'm going to go back to the student side. You can see my pen marks. You can see where I wrote, this is me typing up top. And because I've initiated, oh, sorry, let me just go back. I'm just going to erase it because it's getting a bit busy here. When I initiate the pen, on my student side of OptClass, on Gabriella's side of OptClass, that means I've initiated drawing mode, and now my student also has a pen that she can use to draw on the screen. And I could ask her, I could instruct her to circle different parts of the content based on her understanding of the lesson, for example. And I can erase her pen drawings as the teacher. I have control here. And I can remove her access to the pen by deselecting the pen. The same thing, so in this concept of everything being synced, the same thing goes for, I'll give you a good example here. The same thing goes from a magnifying glass. So on OptClass, when you press the magnifying glass, you're able to zoom into the content. Really to focus your students' attention on a certain point, for example. When I use the magnifying glass now, that is reflected back on my student side of OptClass. This is going back to Gabriella's side. Of course, I can zoom back out, deselect it, and now if I come back to the student side of OptClass, that all gets reflected in real time. The other thing that's really important is our on our listening activities, which contain audio. Now, when you play the audio on the teacher side, the audio gets played back on the student side. So there's no more need to share your sound using Zoom's sound sharing feature or worry about sharing your sound on Skype. The sound is automatically reflected from the listening activities to your student side of OptClass. And the other important thing that now gets synced between both the teacher and the student is the ability to edit the content. So I'm still on the teacher side here. When I right click, I see a number of these options here. I'm going to enable editing, and I'm going to answer one of these to show my student. If I was an old man, I wouldn't like today's music. And then I'm going to come back to Gabriella's side, and as you can see, she sees the edits that I've done into the content. And for the teacher side, for the student side, now they can edit the content too. So I could tell Gabriella, oh, answer number 17, and she could give it a go by typing in. So if we were at work today, if we weren't at work today, we would probably have a picnic. And when I come back to the teacher side, all these edits are reflected live onto my content. And as the teacher, I have the ability to right click and undo the text edits. And I can also, if the lesson's getting a little bit out of control, I can disable the editing as well. so that neither the teacher or the student are able to edit. So one more syncing feature that I wanted to show you guys is our canvas. So the lesson canvas on OptClass is a really popular feature. For those of you who don't know much about it, basically, when I press this canvas button in the top left here, what happens is I get taken into an online whiteboard, and each of my lessons on OptClass has a different canvas associated with it. So I can import articles or text here. I can import images. I can import YouTube videos. I'm just going to import an image off my desktop. I'm not sure what I have right now on my desktop as far as images go. I have this picture of one of my students, so I'm going to import that. Not necessarily related to the second conditional, which is what this lesson is about. But when I import that image, that's going to get saved onto my canvas, as you can see here. And likewise, if I was to import a YouTube video, that would get embedded here. If I was to copy and paste a large block of text, that would get copied here. And now this canvas, when I go into the canvas on the teacher side, this now gets reflected onto the student side. So I'm just going to come back over to the student side. And as you can see, my students, Gabriella, has been drawn into the canvas and can now see what I've put up on the canvas live. So that is now synced between your side of OptClass and the student side of OptClass. So a couple other interesting features that I want to show you guys is that when you right click, so I showed you before that when you right click, I can enable editing. That's one of the features that I see on OptClass. But there's some other features that are actually interesting now. I can play a text-to-speech audio function. I'm not going to press that because I've got both the teacher and student side open. You're gonna hear it twice. You're gonna hear it both from the teacher side and the student side. Well, I'll press it. You'll just hear it twice. But I can play audio. I can Google Translate the word into my student's native language. So let's pretend today that Gabriella is a Spanish student. So I can choose to run a translation for her into Spanish. Problema, not the hardest word that I chose. I can run an image search. Not sure. Oh, there you go. More relevant probably for certain types of nouns. And I can also open up a dictionary. And pull up the definition of any word. So that is the basics of what I wanted to show you guys today. I can see that there are some questions already up in the Q&A. I'll just remind everybody that there's a Q&A button in the top left of your panel, and you can post questions up there. And I will be taking up your questions now. Nicoletta's already posted 2 questions. Nicoletta's asked about student accounts. Basically, Nicoletta, you set up the student accounts on OptClass. So OptClass is a completely teacher-controlled platform. So you bring your students onto OptClass, and when you're logged in as your teacher, you can go up to Student Management here, this yellow button. And then you can press, now when I press Student Management, I see all the students that I have registered to OptClass. Then I can press this Add Students button here, and then you'll be able to register your student there. And then when you register your student, we'll send you you can choose to just send the login credentials directly to your student, but we'll also send you an email of the login credentials that you can have for your records. And you could forward that email to your students as well, or if you want to send your own personalized email, you can copy that and paste it into your own invite. Can the teacher, Nicoletta is now asking, can the teacher introduce his own lessons? So right now, you can't upload your own lessons, but you can upload your own content into those lesson canvases that I was showing you, if you want to put your own spin on your lessons. Nicoletta's now asking, so I need my students' email addresses. Well, you need some way of, you don't need an email address. They can log into OptClass. They need to log into OptClass. They need an email address and a password. You could set them up on a fake email address if you don't have their email addresses, but you need some way of communicating with them in order to tell them this is how you get into OptClass. Rick's asking, are we recording this session so he can review it later? Yeah, absolutely, Rick. I'm recording it right now, and I will distribute it after the session. I'm just going to launch the lesson we were just in and enroll my student, Gabriella. Rick's asking, is Zoom a free service like Skype? Yeah, so it is. So for one-on-one lessons, Rick, you can obtain a free account. And the free account allows you, without any limitation, to have one-on-one lessons. If you needed to do group lessons, then you would be best to have a pro account, which is $10 a month. But if you were doing one-on-one lessons online, then yes, you could get away with the free Zoom account. Yeah, so Helen's got a great question. Helen's asking, how does it work with more than one student? Do they see each other's work when it's interactive? So what Helen's basically asking is, as I was showing you, see down here, I've got Gabriella enrolled into this lesson. But I could enroll multiple students into this lesson, meaning they would all be following along to my lesson from their own copy of, from their own login on OptClass. And basically, when one of my students edits the lesson content, it's going to go to that gap fill exercise because it's a good, simple exercise to illustrate the point. So I could instruct, so this is my copy of OptClass, and I could instruct Gabriella to answer number 4, and when she does that, we will all see her edits on our versions, on our copies of the content. And then I could instruct another student, for example, Jose, to answer number 5, and then we'll all see each other's edits. And I can also, I can always revert anywhere that's edited by any of my students is going to be highlighted in green. So I can see as the teacher where the edits have taken place, and my students can easily see where the edits have taken place. And as the teacher, if I right-click on any line that has been edited, I can undo the text edits. And I can take this back to its default state. If I wanted to, for example, if I wanted to give another student an opportunity, or if there's just too many edits on the page and I wanted to revert it back to its original state. Jet's asking if, I'm not exactly sure I understand the question. Jet's asking if I add any notes about my students, can I be sure the students can see my notes? So down here, we have a yellow button that says take notes. If I press that, this is where I can take notes about my student Gabriella, but these are my teaching notes. These are for me as the teacher to save notes about Gabriella. Perhaps she was struggling with a part of the language. Perhaps I found out something personal about her that's going to be a good piece of information in the future to personalize my lessons with her. If I use this yellow take notes button and save this, those get reflected back to me as the teacher, but those aren't for my student to see. And then when I go to Gabriella's profile in the student management, I can review those notes, edit those notes, and when I enroll her into lessons, those notes will pop out to me. If you want to save notes on your students and provide them with them after class, you can actually use the chat facility. So you can chat with your students, and you could concept check and add a written live dynamic to your lesson here by using the chat. And then you could copy this. We don't have an automatic way of sharing this with your students after class, but you can copy this text and provide it to them, for example, as an email after class, directly from the chat facility. Hope I answered your question properly there, Jeff. Yes. So yeah, they cannot see your notes, Jet. When you use that take notes button, those are private notes for you. Alexandra, I don't know join.me well, but basically, if you press a URL, if you can find a link that launches your meeting, then you can use that in the off to class, what I've showed you. In your profile page, you can paste that in. So if there's a URL, a link that you can press and that launches it on your computer, then there's no reason that you can't use it the way I showed you how we embedded the Zoom links. Rick's asking, what's the best way to provide students with slides that they can review after? That's great. So Rick, we actually automate that process. So I've got Gabriella enrolled down here. And so when I enroll Gabriella into a lesson, we automatically send her a copy of the lesson summary. So I'll just show you between classes what Gabriella's profile looks like on off class. So I'm going to come back over to Gabriella's side. And as you can see, I've been enrolling her in the same class because I've been using her as a demo. But today we've enrolled her twice into the same lesson, but she gets automatically delivered a lesson summary of the lesson. And when she presses review lesson summary, that opens up a summary of the lesson. So this happens automatically every time you enroll her in a lesson. Okay, now I'll just come back to the teacher side of OptiClass. Yvonne's asking a great question. So when you enroll the student into a lesson, how does the student know to join your lesson? So I'm going to pick a different lesson here. I'm going to launch a lesson, an idioms lesson, and I'm going to enroll my student Gabriella and press enroll. And as you can see, Gabriella is now enrolled in my lesson. Now I'm going to come back to the student side. And now Yvonne, when Gabriella logs in and you've enrolled her, she sees a big button here that says join lesson. And when she presses that button, when she presses that button, she gets drawn into the lesson. I hope that answers your question, Yvonne. Yeah, it's the big green button in the top left of her panel. She can't miss it. Rick's asking, when does the student start to hear the audio? I would assume you mean for our listening activities. So we have a number of listening activities on OptClass. And those listening activities have certain slides have audio components where the teacher has to press play on the audio. So I'm going to launch one of our listening activities just to show you. I'm just going to say I'm just browsing. And so the listening activities, some of the slides contain audio components, and you'll know when there's an audio component because you'll see a player up here telling you to play the slides. And as soon as you press that audio will start playing on the student side of OptClass. So they'll hear it right away. It'll be synced live. Oh, Rick, yeah. So as soon as you press start video, your meeting starts, and you'll be able to see and communicate with your student. Okay. So Rick was actually asking when you launch the video conferencing classroom, when do you get to start communicating to each other? And it's instant, the same as if you just were to launch a Skype meeting, or you could launch a Skype meeting as well. So if you wanted, you could ignore everything I just told you about Zoom, and you could have your student join the lesson on OptClass, and then you could just call them on Skype, and you could do it that way as well. Yeah, Jet's asking, is there a way to practice the online classroom with herself as a test student? Absolutely, and that's a great idea, so that you can see everything from the teacher and the student perspective. Set up one of your student accounts as a dummy student, as a fake student, and log in as that student on another device. And so you have your teacher device and your student device next to each other, and definitely test it out so that you can see both sides, so you know how things work as the entire loop. Absolutely, that's a great idea. Megan's just asked a great question. Does the student need to download Zoom too? Yeah, so Megan, Zoom I'm using as an example of a video conferencing system. It's the video conferencing system I like to use. I think it's got, it's also the video conferencing system we're using right now. But maybe I didn't make my point clear enough that you can use any video conferencing system. So you could have your students join the lesson and then you could initiate a Skype call. The nice thing about using Zoom or GoToMeeting and other link-based joining systems is that you can actually take your link and embed it into your profile page. And then when you or your students join the lesson on Off to Class, they can initiate the video by pressing this Start Video button because you've previously embedded that link into your profile. Now, if your student hasn't downloaded Zoom, let's say this is your first online session with your student, when they press this Start Video button, Zoom will actually initiate a download process automatically. And it's a very small download, and within about a minute, the Zoom will be downloaded on your student's computer and the lesson will be launched. So there will be an automatic download process when they join your lesson for the first time, and that's initiated by Zoom. Yeah, so yeah, I should probably clear up this point. I've been showing Zoom as an example of a video conferencing system, but you can use this. We're still sticking with the concept on Off to Class that every teacher has their own favorite tools, and we're not prescribing to you which video conferencing system to use. You can use any video conferencing system. Skype, Google Hangouts, GoToMeeting, WizIQ, Join.me. There's a host out there, and everybody's got their favorites. We're just showing you, or I'm just showing you, that if you're using a link-based joining process, so if you're using a video conferencing system where you press a URL, you press a link that's a unique link, and that launches your meeting, then you have the ability to embed those links in your Off to Class profiles to automate everything, so that it's a one-step joining procedure. But if you wanted to use Skype, the basic process would be, you launch your lesson, you enroll your student, Gabriella logs into Off to Class, presses Join Lesson, and then you can see that Gabriella has joined the class because we tell you in the chat window, and then you call her on Skype. Easy, no problem. Yes, so Jet, you'll need to download Zoom onto your computer and set up a meeting. So as I was showing you before, so you will download Zoom, the Zoom client on your computer, and you will set up a meeting. And you can just call the meeting Online Lessons. And then once you've done that, you'll press this copy button under your meeting. That will copy the invite for you. And then when you paste the invite, oh, sorry, open up my notepad. And then when you paste the invite, you'll be able to obtain your unique meeting URL from the invite. And it's this URL that's unique to your meeting, and it's this URL that you want to paste into your profile. No, Megan's asking, do you have to do this copy and paste for every lesson meeting? No, so you would only do it once, and that would be, you would be using the same meeting URL for all your online lessons. So don't distribute that URL. Keep it private. Don't give it to your students because you don't want your students clicking that link while you're in a meeting with another student. because then they'll be brought into your meeting. As long as you keep that URL private and put it in your profile page, your students will never have access to that URL. The only time they'll be able to access that URL is when you invite them into off class, and they'll be able to press this start video button here. So this only has to be done once. You set up one generic recurring meeting in Zoom, call it online lessons, copy the URL, put it into your profile, and then don't distribute that URL to any of your students. And then it only has to be done once. Nicoletta's asking, can we have an online lesson with 30 students at once? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. If you can handle having 30 students in your meeting at once, absolutely. There's no limit on OptiClass to how many students you can enroll into any single lesson. Guillermo's asking how many students can interact on each lesson. There's no limit there, Guillermo. From a system perspective, it's more about how you're going to control this as a teacher, and how many students you're going to be able to kind of keep control on. Yeah, no, there's no limit. So if you can enroll, so from an OptiClass perspective, you can enroll as many students as you want into any one lesson. And from a Zoom perspective, you could on a pro account, $10 a month, I think you can have up to 50 participants in your meetings. So there's no limitation there. The limitation is more going to be driven from your ability to control all these participants. Keep in mind that the background audio of each of your students is going to be coming into the lesson, and might be affecting the overall sound of your lesson. So it's more gonna be determined by your ability to control all of this as a teacher. It's Jet. It's for one-on-one lessons. Jet's asking, what's the monthly cost of Zoom? For one-on-one lessons, you can use a free account. If you need to do group lessons, it's $10 a month. So are there any other questions out there? As I mentioned to Rick, I have recorded today's session, and I will post this up for review later. Alexandra's got a question. She's just sent the off-class placement test to a student. Does she need Zoom to check it together? That really depends on how you want to communicate with your student. You'll need some way to share the results with the student if you want to kind of go over the results live with your student. You could use Skype, you could use Zoom, but you will need some way to share the results. So yeah, you could set up a Zoom call with your student, or a Skype call with your student, and then you could share your screen in order to share the placement test results with your student. Does that make sense, Alexandra? Guillermo, yes, this webinar is being recorded, and I will distribute the webinar to all the attendees after today's session. So there's no problem there. You'll be able to review this after. Alexandra, yeah, so Alexandra, that's actually a great question about the placement test. We haven't touched on the placement test today because the subject of today's webinar was really to show you kind of the new classroom. But yeah, we definitely recommend that you take that approach with placement test results, that in your initial consultations, instead of releasing the results to your student, it's going to be more powerful to kind of walk them through the results live. And for an online student or a student that's not with you in the same location, you could do that with just a basic Skype call. You could share your screen, or a Zoom call where you share your screen, and you could show them the results and walk them through it. Guillermo's asking, what's the cost for unlimited students? We don't provide accounts with unlimited students. If you need a high capacity plan for students, you can get in touch with me after the call, and I can quote you on a plan that would meet your capacity. Oh, Rodney's posted a question in the chat, and I'll just ask everybody to post your questions in the Q&A button in the top left. But yeah, I'll take that up. So Rodney's asking, are there benchmark assessments available after you've had time to work with the student through their initial learning plan coming from their placement test results? So for anybody that's not aware, we have a placement test, and when your students sit it, we produce a gap analysis. And that gap analysis shows all the questions that your student got wrong or answered I don't know to. And then we link those gaps to our lesson library. And then that shows kind of an individual learning plan that you can work through with your students to fix all their gaps in their ESL knowledge. So actually, Rodney, we don't have specific level tests that you can assign. We're working on those. But for now, you can actually reassign the placement tests. Because it pulls off a database of 800 questions, no two tests will be the same. There won't be that much repeat in the questions. So after 2, 3, 4 months that you've worked through the placement test results, the learning plan with your students, you can actually reassign the test to your students, and it'll be a new test, and then you'll have a new level indicator plus a new gap analysis and learning plan that you can work through with your students. Oh, Guillermo's asking a great question. Is it possible to personalize the platform? Yes, absolutely. So As you see, this up here would usually say off to class, but I've uploaded my own logo. This is just a logo I took off the internet, and it's for illustrative purposes. So when you go for our white labeling option, which we call Pro, you'll be able to put your logo there. And for your students, your logo will be on the main interface. It'll be on the homework assignments. On the main student interface, on the placement tests, and on the login page. So yeah, Guillermo, you can take advantage of our branding option, which is called the Pro option. If you want to put your company logo on off the class. That costs $150, and it's completely separate from your subscription cost. And that's a one-time fee to brand the platform, and that covers you and all your students, and your logo will be up forever. So you'll be able to, even if you unsubscribe from off the class and came back a year later, your logo would still be up for you and your students. So it's a one-time fee of $150, a setup fee. Yvonne has said that off the class looks classy and professional with your own logo, and she's 100% satisfied. That's great to hear, Yvonne, and everybody can see Yvonne's testimonial right now in the Q&A section. So thanks for that, Yvonne. It's great to hear the feedback. Alexandra's asking how much does the basic option cost per month? So I should probably navigate over to our pricing page. So I can show you guys for newer members of Off the Class how the pricing looks. So we sell accounts directly to teachers. As I was saying, Off the Class is a teacher-based platform. You bring your students onto the platform. We don't sell this directly to students. So it really is a teacher-led platform. And so our lightest teacher account is $7 a month. And that will give you the ability to have 2 students on the platform. And then for a 4-student account, it's $12 a month, and a 15-student account, it's $25 a month. And of course, you can reassign this capacity at any time. So if you have a 2-student account and one of your students stops learning with you, you can just deactivate them, and that opens up a student slot for you. And Guillermo was asking, how about an unlimited student account? We don't offer unlimited students on the platform, but if you need more than 15 students, you can just message me, and that falls under this category of kind of customization. And I'll customize a plan that meets your capacity needs for you. Well, that brings us to the end of the hour. Thank you to everybody for all your questions. It makes it much easier as a presenter when we've got a great question flow going. So I really want to thank everybody that came today and posted your questions. It was great for me, and it was a really great session, a really fruitful session. So I'm going to end the webinar now. But as you know, you can always get in touch with us through email. When you registered for this webinar, you received an email. If you reply to those emails, they come straight to me. So I'll be looking forward to hearing from everybody. Take care, everyone, and I really do hope you enjoy the new live mode teaching features that I showed you today.